So here are 8 ideas that I have for improving security in systems with passwords and stuff without making the system harder, which is a huge barrier for people sometimes with disability, because with us, you're more likely to mistype things, have trouble typing in the first place, and so on and so on. And also, just every little anxiety adds up. So one thing that's kind of silly that I want to add is emoji passwords, or passwords with emojis, other symbols as an option. Not for everybody, because I know every system is not compatible and typing longer and stuff like that and seeing issues. But if you add emojis, the password becomes something more secure, because you don't have this 26 letters, lowercase, uppercase, 52. You don't only have the numbers and everything. You have all these bunch of combinations. So it's a lot harder for something just to randomly guess what you're doing, even if it's just a tiny, tiny bit. It goes up with the power of different combinations. And this also means that if a small minority of people start using emojis, maybe you can make the other restrictions less, that not everyone has to use a special character, which can help people remember that the passwords better, that do not use a special character anymore, because you have opened up more flexibilities in other places. There's more options. Or maybe someone remembers stuff better with emojis, so there's more possibilities. And that way we can get more passwords that people might remember better. Another one is that we oftentimes have the username on top and the password on the bottom. But for half the time, if we can switch it back and forth, we can make it so it's a little more secure, because the computer that's trying to hack you has to guess, is the password on top or the username? So it has 2 times as many guesses it has to do. And you can add a lock-in feature to make it even better. You can also have something, a little question mark somewhere on the side, to ask you to add something. So it says, at the end of your password, add 5, or add 7. Or it says, write your password backwards into the thing. Therefore, a computer system cannot, this will have a couple of advances. Oh, and the second one also has these advances. Second one, if it figures out your username and password once, it might not figure out second time. If you search it around, it might not be able to hack you. But if it asks you to add something or do something like switch your password, ask you to do something weird like add a number or something, if it guesses it, if some computer guesses it the first time, it might not be able to guess the second time when it asks you something different. Or it might make a wrong guess, because it might think you have an extra number. It also might take longer to compute if you ask every time to add one letter or number or something. You could make it take 52 times more time to just randomly check stuff. You can also ask what devices should be allowed more, and people have already done this, but I'm just adding it. More specifically, what devices are allowed to really log in, such as should we really look at if it's an iPhone, an Apple computer, stuff like that. But I'm saying more general than just as a trusted computer, more like, am I an Apple user or something? Another idea I have is it could be more based on location. You could also put a location for it to be more trusted for less security. And stuff like that you often add. And you can be very specific to very wide. You can also look at the Wi-Fi types for this as security measures. And then see if it's compatible, or it has to ask you more questions. Another one is that when it comes to device knowledge, location, and Wi-Fi type especially, you could use a hash function to increase the encryption rate, and a hash function with time. And what hash functions do is they take a number or something, they take something and make it and you put it through this function, and something else comes out at the end that's very distinct and hard to predict. And that usually doesn't overlap, and it's not like a linear one-to-one function. It's like all over the place. Like I put in 10, I get 30. I put in 100, I get 1. I put in 5, I get 69. I put in 2, I get -5. It's all over the place. If you add time also to this thing, when you put a hash function, time is continuously changing. So what happens is you do not know. It's going to put it through this function that's really hard to predict what it gives out. based on your location and Wi-Fi type. So a person that's trying to reconstruct it would have to figure out your location and Wi-Fi type, but they don't have a clue as much because it's also mixed up with the time. So they can't just figure out one piece by piece. They also have to figure out location, Wi-Fi type, and time. And then the time keeps changing, so it keeps updating. You can also use other things that are changing more. And compared to like a one-time key, this is something that a computer could easily find out. One-time keys, which are like ways you have to figure out one time, are more secure technically, but this is something that you could do really fast. And you can't also look back in the past to past answers very well and figure out in the future. Just another layer of complexity. You could also look at the number of messages back and forth, which is harder to store than time, and there's more logistics problems, but it's something that's more unique than time and hard for someone else to guess, and you can use this with the hash function encryption. Well, thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers in a year and 4,000 watch hours, which is really hard, but with your help, I think I can do it. Thank you very much again.